Hi, this is Tim Rodas. We're going to talk about the next assignment. It's related to learning goals and measurable objectives. I introduced this topic in class on Tuesday. I like this a lot because it really causes you to think about how you describe things that you've learned, but do so in a way that demonstrates an understanding that there are things that you remember. You remember a list of things, you remember the name of things, you remember how to spell the name of something, all the way up to I created something. And so that's what Bloom captured in his taxonomy of learning. And so this notion of we learn from lower order thinking skills to higher order thinking skills is really what it takes to become an expert in a field. You get that first job, you know a little bit about it from college or from part-time work or internship, but you haven't worked there for a long time. And the longer you work there, the more you see, the more you've done, the more you've encountered. You've dealt with supervising people, you've dealt with perhaps dealing with customers, you've dealt with product difficulties, production difficulties if you're in a production environment. Just all the different things that it takes to become a good manager, a better manager, and then a great manager. Now, Bloom's terms imply this progression up the ladder, and his revised taxonomy is what we're going to utilize to do our work for the next note. So it begins with remembering, then understanding, applying, analyzing, evaluating, and creating. Now, within those categories, there are verbs, and as I said in class, the thing about Bloom is to start to understand that it's the verbs when you talk that you use when you speak that really gives away what kind of thinking, what type of skill are you describing. If you're listing something, name the parts of a motor, or design a new motor to power cars. It may not be gasoline powered, it may be solar, it may be battery. When you start designing, you're creating a whole new technology. So that's where it moves up that ladder. And then these sample verbs I've provided here on this first page are things that are a short list, and then I've given you a longer list down here in the Bloom's revised taxonomy process verbs. We're going to use this list as we go to the assignment page. Especially notice that while this starts at the top, I'll scroll down to the bottom level. The remembering level relates to recalling information. Can you recognize, list, describe, name, or find an object? The verbs in this column here, process verbs, these two columns, these are what I want you to use in a sentence that's going to relate to your primary career goal, what I call the PCG, and you're going to write a statement that uses at least two of these verbs. So in this case, choose, cite, define, describe, give example, group, or match, memorize, name, quote, recall. Using two of those, highlight the verb that appears in your sentence. And this is going to be useful when we look at the assignment. So I'm switching from the background information. Watch the drummer video. He's making use of a ladder to imply Bloom's taxonomy, increasing in level of complexity. And it's a funny little video. So then the assignment. This is what I learned outside of class. And so in Evernote, you're going to start a new note titled What I Learned Outside of Class that relates to working as, and then insert your primary career goal. In my example, and I'll show you that further down the page here, my primary career goal was working as a greenhouse manager. I did this before I became a graduate student and then a professor after getting my bachelor's degree. I worked 4 years in a commercial greenhouse on the west side of Cleveland and learned a lot of very valuable skills, as well as learned about horticulture and growing plants. So think about, step 2, think about your career goal. And based on what you've learned through internships or working in the field, develop a list of skills that are required to be successful on the job. Now, by skills, think very specifically in terms of the when I was doing that work for an internship or a part-time job or what I know about the field, how would I start the day? What would I do? I would drive to work, I would get there, and then what? What would I be doing? If I was a summer intern, how did my day start? Did I have to organize things? Did I have to pick up things? Did I have to look at a job board? Was there somebody that would give me assignments? How did my day go? What did I need? What was I doing? Where did I do it? Did I travel someplace on the operation to do that work? So just start thinking about the work that you did. And that's going to be important because that list, and you don't have to write sentences, just write topics. That list is going to help you sort out what are the more routine and the types of jobs that require just an understanding. So if I said to gather up the supplies that we need to do a particular job for, then knowing what tools are required or what materials are required, that would become a pretty routine assignment, and I wouldn't have any difficulty doing it because I knew the tools or I knew the supplies. I knew where to go to gather them up. I knew how many to gather up. I had been doing that job before. So in a greenhouse, first thing that somebody does, and it may be several people, is to water plants. Overnight, the plants used up water, and they had used up water during the day before, and if it was a sunny day, they used up a lot of water on inside greenhouse plants we're talking about. And so we had to start watering the plants, and depending on the greenhouse, you would water plants differently, but if you were part of the watering crew, you soon learned how to get started in the morning and how to get the materials ready. Now prioritize, next step, prioritize what's important to know using Bloom's Revised Taxonomy, that page we were just looking at. Start with the first category, remembering. Now using the taxonomy definition, I just had that on the page here. So the taxonomy definition for remembering relates to recalling information. And that the skills of recognizing, listing, describing, retrieving, naming, and finding would be verbs that are appropriate at that level, at the remembering level. Now, what's going to happen now is I want you to write a sentence. In your note, we're going to create a table. The table is going to have, so in my example here, title at the top, find an appropriate picture, give a source to that picture, knowledge, and my sentence, list the various crops you have worked with in a wholesale or retail greenhouse business and describe your job responsibilities for each crop. This is a question that if I was going to talk to you about your knowledge, and if you were a horticulture major and had worked in a greenhouse for your internship or part-time job or were out there working with your college degree, and if I asked you this question because you were wanting to interview at my greenhouse, during the interview I could say, list the various crops you have worked with in your prior greenhouse experience and describe your responsibilities for each crop. So that's a question that's relevant to the knowledge level of understanding for someone who's in the greenhouse manager business. So that's, you decide the question, highlight the verbs that are coming from the sample verbs, and then answer that question. So think of yourself as being in an interview. This is the question that I was hoping they would ask, and I've got a good answer. And here's my answer, and this is honest answer in terms of when I worked with Sunnyside Nursery in Columbia Station, Ohio. So I've done the first row, knowledge. Add 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more rows, so a total of 6 rows in this table, and this table up here just has 1 row, 1 column. This has 3 columns and 6 rows. Add comprehension, application, analysis, synthesis, evaluation. Create a sentence using the sample verbs. Then write out your answer, at least 50 words to the answer. So let's go back and look at that assignment one more time. So what I learned outside of class, and then repeat the first step of step number 3 there 5 more times for the understanding applying, and then for each of the 6 levels describe your own experiences and accomplishments with a minimum of 50 words. Select that photo and then save that note. So what this note's going to represent is it's going to be a nice story with a good picture, things that you've learned outside of class that as you look back on them now through your experiences, and this doesn't have to be limited to one place, so you can only describe things that occurred at that place, but if you had multiple internships or have worked at multiple places related to your career goal, use those experiences. Think about those skills that you developed that went from a lower order thinking skill to a higher order thinking skill. That's a good assignment. It's due on Friday next week. Bye.